Maybe so we're gonna be continuing stage 7. Almost really well finishing time. Ready? Good,
Okay.
good, good. Okay, so good. Does someone else usually make breakfast for you, or do you make it yourself? Does someone else usually make breakfast for you, or do you make it yourself? I usually
I
make my
usually
breakfast
make my
myself.
breakfast myself.
What is the difference between these two sentences? He painted the house himself, and he painted the house by himself. What is the difference between these two sentences? He painted the house himself, and he painted the house by himself. The
The
difference
difference
between those
between
two
those two
sentences
sentences
is that the
is
first
that the
sentence
first sentence
emphasizes
emphasizes
the fact
the
that
fact that
he
he
painted the house,
painted
not someone
the
else. The
he
house,
painted the house,
not someone else.
not
Whereas
someone else. Whereas
the second
the
sentence
second
means
sentence means
he painted
he
the house
painted the
alone
house alone
without any help.
without any help.
Does that door shut by itself? Does that door shut by itself? No, this door
No,
doesn't
this
shut
door doesn't shut by
by itself.
itself.
Do students, only this for example, right? So do students answer questions in these lessons by themselves? Do students answer questions in these lessons by themselves? No,
No,
students don't
students
answer
don't
questions. Answer
answer
questions
questions
in these
in these
lessons
lessons
by
by
themselves.
themselves.
The teacher helps
Their
the teacher
the
the teacher
teacher
helps them
helps them
to answer.
to answer.
Have you ever been anywhere in the world that was so hot that you couldn't stand the heat? I am. Have you? Not you. Yeah, you should ask me this. Have you ever have you ever been anywhere in the world that was so hot that you couldn't stand the heat? No. I've never
I've
been
never
anywhere in the
been
world
anywhere in the world
that was so
that was
hot
so
that
hot
I couldn't stand
that
the heat.
that I couldn't
That I couldn't stand the heat.
stand the heat.
Yes, I can still stand. Guys, it's only 40 degrees. It's nothing.
Melt.
So hot. It is so. Melt what? Hey, ice cream. Yeah, I'm the one who's melting now. Give an example of something that you can't stand. Give an example of something that you can't stand. I can't
I can't
stand
stand
without my snack
without
every
my
day.
snack every day.
Without my snack, please. That's true, guys. That's not just a joke. It's true. What does the idiom "gotta move on" mean? What does the idiom "gotta move on" mean? The
The
idiom "gotta
idiom
move
"gotta
on"
move
means
on" means
hurry.
hurry.
Give an examples. Give an examples. If you gotta move
If
on,
you gotta move on,
you might
you
finish
might
that
finish
job
that job
by the end of the
by
day.
the end of the day.
Are there any mountains in your country where snow settles on the top even in the middle of summer? Are there any mountains in your country where snow settles on the top even in the middle of summer? No, there
No,
aren't
they aren't
any mountains
any
in my
mountains
country
in my country
where snow
where
settles on the
snow
top
settles on the top,
even in the middle of
even the
summer.
middle of summer.
Very safe, nowhere. Would you be surprised if you were walking across the park and a bird came and settled on your shoulder? Would you be surprised if you were walking across the park and a bird came and settled on your shoulder? Yes, no.
Yes,
I'd be surprised
I'd be surprised
if I were
if I
walking
were
across the
walking
park, across a park,
across a park,
and a bird
and a
came
bird came
and settled
and
on my
settled
shoulder.
on my shoulder.
Settle on my shoulder. That's
Hmm.
yeah. They thought you were the widow. Okay, another. So, would you find it difficult to settle in a foreign country forever? Would you find it difficult to settle in a foreign country forever? Yes, I'd find it
Yes, I'd
difficult
find it difficult
to settle in a foreign
in a
country
foreign
forever.
country forever
Why? Why? Because it's very
because
difficult
very difficult
for me to adapt
to
their
adopt their
culture
culture
and their food.
and their food.
Yes. If you couldn't settle your bill in a restaurant because you didn't have enough money with you, what would you do? If you couldn't settle your bill in a restaurant because you didn't have money with you, what would you do? If I couldn't
If I
settle
couldn't
my bill,
settle my bill
in a restaurant
in a
because
restaurant
I
because
didn't have
I
enough
didn't have
money with
enough
me,
money with me,
I'd wash the
I'd wash
dishes
the dishes.
and pay. Right? And pay for what I've eaten. Anyways, when you add sugar to a cup of coffee, what happens if you don't stir it? When you add a sugar, not the sugar because you cannot count sugar, right? So when you add sugar to a cup of coffee, what happens if you don't stir it? When you
When
add
you
sugar to
add sugar to a
a
cup
cup
of
of coffee and
coffee
don't
and don't cup
uh,
of coffee
coffee and don't stir
and
it,
don't stir it,
the sugar
the sugar
settles at the bottom
at the
or to the
bottom
to the
to the
bottom
bottom
to the bottom
to the
of
bottom of
the cup.
the cup.
If two countries Miyu can settle a political problem, where do they go in order to settle it? If two countries can settle a political problem, where do they go in order to settle it? If two
If two
countries can't settle
countries can settle
a political
a
problem,
political problem,
they go to the
they
United
go to
Nations,
the United Nations,
the United
the United
Nations,
Nations,
in order to
in
settle it.
order to settle it.
Yes, I'm a beatboxer. What does a teacher say to pupils when they're making too much noise? What does a teacher say to pupils when they're making too much noise? A teacher
A teacher
says,
says,
"Come on now,
"Come on
settle
now,
down,
settle
settle
down,
down,
settle
settle down." To
down." To
pupils when
pupils when
they're making too
they are
much
making
noise.
too much noise.
If someone said that they were planning to go on holiday but not that nothing had been settled yet, what would they mean? If someone said that they were planning to go on holiday but that nothing had been settled yet, what would they mean? If someone
If
said
someone
that
said that
and they were
they
planning
were
to go on
planning to go on
holiday
holiday,
but that
but
nothing
that
had been
nothing
settled
had been
yet,
settled yet,
they would
they
mean
would
that
mean that
they had
they
not
had
made any
not
final
made any
decisions
final decision yet.
yet. Another. So, what do we mean by unsettled weather? What do we mean by unsettled weather? By unsettled weather, by
Unsettled
unsettled
by
weather,
unsettled weather,
we mean
we
we
mean
mean weather that's
weather
constantly
that's constantly
changing.
changing.
Would you say that success in life was partly a question of luck? Would you say that success in life was partly a question of luck? Yes, no?
Yes,
I'd say that
I'd say that
success
success
in life, in
life
life,
in life
in life was partly a
was
question of luck.
partly
A
a
question of luck.
question of luck.
Excuse me, I worked so hard for what I have. You're lucky, man. The soldiers have to be extremely brave when they go into battle. The soldiers have to be extremely brave when they go into battle. Yes, soldiers
Yes,
have to be
soldiers
have to
have
be
to be
extremely
extremely
brave,
brave
extremely brave when they go into
when they go
battle.
into battle.
Extremely. What does it mean to be tidy? What does it mean to be tidy? To be tidy means
Be,
to be tidy
to be
means
tidy means
to keep things
to
in their
keep
proper
things in
place.
proper place.
In their
In their
proper
proper
place.
place.
I became a Japanese. Proper place. Hello. Are you a tidy person? Are you a tidy person? Yes, no? No, I'm not a tidy person.
No, I'm not a
Like,
tidy person.
when you were already shaking, who's the first to answer? Yeah, guys, that's our challenge, guys. Who to say yes or no first? Is it often difficult for parents to get their children to tidy their rooms? Is it often difficult for parents to get their children to tidy their rooms? Yes, it's often
Yes,
difficult for parents.
it's
It's often
often
difficult
difficult
for
for
parents to get
parents to
their
get their
children
children to
to tidy
tidy
the rooms.
their rooms.
Tidy the rooms.
Tidy their rooms.
Have you ever acted on a stage in the theater? Have you ever acted on the stage in the theater? Yes, no?
No.
I've never acted on
I've
the
never
stage
acted on the stage
in the
in
theater.
the theater.
It's fun, but I'm shy. Would you be afraid to act on the stage? Would you be afraid to act on the stage? Yes, no?
Yes.
I'd be afraid
I'd
to
be
act
afraid to act
on the
on the
stage.
stage.
But you have that right during the wedding of your brother. Oh, that was the kids, not you. Those were kids, not you. Okay, at what stage of your English studies are you at the moment? Beginner, intermediate, or advanced? At what stage of your English studies are you at the moment? Beginner, intermediate, or advanced? I'm at an
I'm at
intermediate
an
stage
intermediate stage
of my English studies
of
at the
my
moment.
English stage.
Studies at the moment.
Studies
Studies at the moment.
at the moment.
Stage of my English studies. Yep. Congratulations! At what stage of a man's life does his hair begin to drop out? At what stage of man's life does his hair begin to drop out? A man's
A
hair
man's
can
hair
begin can begin
can begin
to drop
to
out at
drop out
any
at
stage
any
of
stage
in his
of
life. In his life.
in his life.
It depends on
It
the
depends
individual.
on the individual.
All right, me. What about this one? What's a stream? What's a stream? A stream is
A
small
stream
river.
is a small
A small river.
river.
If you follow the river upstream, where would it eventually lead you to? If you follow a river upstream, where would it eventually lead you to? If you
If
follow
you
the
follow
river
the river
upstream,
upstream,
it'll
it'll
eventually lead you
eventually
to
lead you to
the mountains
the
or
mountain
hills.
or hills.
Mountains or
Or
hills.
hills.
And if you followed it downstream, where would it eventually lead you to? And if you followed it downstream, where would it eventually lead you to? If you
If you
followed it
it
downstream, it'd
it'll
eventually
eventually
lead you to the sea or a
sea,
lake.
the sea or a lake.
If you saw a stream of people swimming out of the building in a hurry, what do you think? If you saw a stream of people swimming out of the building in a hurry, what did you think? What do you think? What did you think? If I saw a
If I
stream
saw
of
a stream
people
of people
swimming out of the building,
streaming out of the building, a
building
building
in a hurry,
in a hurry,
I'd think that
I'd
either
think
the
that
building
either the
was
building was
on
on
fire or
fire
that
or that
the people had
the
just
people
finished work.
has just finished work.
What are the two types of relative clauses? What are two types of relative clauses? The two
The
types of
two
relative
types of
clauses
relative clauses
are defining
are
clauses
defining
and
clauses and
undefining clauses. Non-defining clauses.
Non-defining clauses.
Clauses. So what's the difference between a defining relative clause and a non-defining relative clause? What's the difference between a defining relative clause and non-defining relative clause? The difference between a defining relative clause and non-defining relative clause is that the defining relative clause identifies which person or thing we're talking about. We're talking about defining relative clause and
non-defining relative clause.
Relative
Relative
clause
clause
simply gives us extra information about them. Give an example of a sentence containing a defining relative clause, please. Give an example of a sentence containing a defining relative clause, please. The milk that she bought this morning is in the fridge. This morning is in the fridge. Is in the fridge. Give an example of the sentence containing an undefined relative clause, please. Give an example of a sentence containing an undefined relative clause, please. My new glasses. Which I bought yesterday. Are really expensive. How is an undefined clause separated from the main part of the sentence? How is an undefining clause separated from the main part of the sentence? An undefining clause. An undefining clause is separated from the main part of the sentence by commas. When can we use the relative pronoun that instead of who or which? When can we use the relative pronoun that instead of who or which? We can use the relative pronoun that instead of who or which in defining clauses. Defining clauses. We cannot use that in non-defining clauses. Give an example. The biscuits that I ate were very tasty. Yep, it's rich. Rich with flavor. So correct this is a mistake in the sentence, please. Miyu, London, that is the capital of England, is a big city. Correct the mistake in the sentence, please. London, that is the capital of England, is a big city. London, which is the capital of England, is a big city. What does the idiom for good mean? What does the idiom for good mean? The idiom for good means forever. Give an example. They are such a perfect couple. I'm sure they'll stay together for good. Yep. Okay, so let me just have a little bit of down here. It's loading again. So this time, what am I doing? You're waving your hand. Waving your hand. What happens to the branch of a tree when it waves too much in the wind? Yep, so what happens to the branch of a tree when it waves too much in the wind? When the branch of a tree waves too much in the wind, it breaks and falls to the ground. And what occasions do we wave our hands? And what occasions do we wave our hands? We wave our hands when we say goodbye to someone, or when we want somebody to notice us from a distance. Is it pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high? Is it pleasant to travel by boat when the waves of the sea are very high? No, it isn't pleasant to travel by boat. When the waves of the sea are very high. Why not? Because it can be dangerous, and also because we can get seasick. Do you prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair? Do you prefer wavy hair rather than straight hair? Yes, no. No, I prefer wavy hair.
I don't prefer
wavy hair rather than straight hair. Would you recommend, or what would you recommend that people do in order to succeed in life? What do you recommend that people do in order to succeed in life? I recommend that people should work harder in order to succeed in life. Which film would you recommend seeing at the moment? Only example. Which film would you recommend seeing at the cinema at the moment? I'd recommend seeing Frozen at the cinema at the moment. Example, if someone said that they wanted a quiet holiday, which part of the culture would you recommend to them? If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, which part of the culture would you recommend to them? If someone said they wanted a quiet holiday, I'd recommend a credit to them. I'd recommend a credit to them. Recommend credit to them.
Huh?
I'd recommend credit to them.
Recommend Hokkaido to them.
How many grams makeup? And about 454 grams. About 454 grams make a pound. What generally speaking is the difference between an injury and a wound? What is generally speaking is the difference between an injury and a wound? Generally speaking, and the difference between an injury and a wound. An injury and a wound. The wound is that we use the word injury for something we receive by accident. And wound for something we receive from fighting. Yep. Have you ever seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident? Have you ever seen anyone badly injured as the result of an accident? Yes, no? Yes, it's me, Trevor. Yes, I've seen someone badly injured as the result of of an accident.
Of an accident.
Just laughing at me, guys. Do you know anyone who has been wounded in a war? Do you know anyone who has been wounded in a war? No, I don't know anyone who has been wounded.
Who has a win,
Who has been
has
wounded
been wounded
in
in a
a war?
war.
I cannot say it's me. Terrible. Are your feelings easily wounded? Are your feelings easily wounded? No, my feelings aren't.
No, my
feelings
feelings aren't
easily
easily
wounded.
wounded.
Yes, you can tell, guys. She's not even, sorry for what she's doing. Yeah, what do you mean when you say we say that somebody is not being sincere? What do we mean if we say that somebody is not being sincere? If we say that
If we
somebody
say
is
that somebody
is not being sincere,
insincere,
we mean
we
that
mean that
they aren't
they
expressing
aren't
their
expressing their true
feelings.
feelings.
Have you ever done any voluntary work? Have you ever done any voluntary work? No, I've never done any
Never done any
any voluntary
voluntary
work.
work.
Do you think children ought to be made to study, or do you think studying ought to be voluntary? Do you think children ought to be made to study, or do you think studying ought to be voluntary? I think
I think
children ought to
children
be
ought
made
to
to
be
study.
made to study
Why? Why? Because it's for
their
their future.
future.
What's the difference between separate and separate? What's the difference between separate and separate? The
The
difference between
difference between
separate
separate and
and
separate
separate is
is
that
that
what separate is
separate is the
the verb, whereas
whereas
separate
separate
is
is
the adjective. Yeah, how do we begin a formal letter or email if we don't know the name of the person we are writing to? How do we begin a formal letter or email if we don't know the name of the person we are writing to? We begin a
We
formal
begin a
letter
formal
or
letter
email
or email
with the words
the
dear
words
sir or dear madam.
dear sir or dear
Or dear
madam.
madam if you don't know the
If you
name of
don't
the
know the name
person
of a person
we are
we
writing
are
to.
writing to.
How do we generally end such a letter or email? How do we generally end such a letter or email? We
We
generally
usually
end
end
such a letter or email with yours
with yours
faithfully or
faithfully or
something like
something like
formal,
less
less formal, like
formal like
kind regards
kind
or best
regards or best
regards.
regards.
If we know the name of the person we are writing to, how do we begin a formal letter or email? If we know the name of the person we are writing to, how do we begin a formal letter or email? If we know
If we
the name
know
of the
the name of the
person
person
we are
we are
writing
writing
to,
to,
we begin a
we
formal
begin a
letter or
formal
email
letter or email
with your
with
name.
your name.
My
Your
name?
name?
Dear
Dear
name.
name.
And how do we end such a letter? And how do we end such a letter? We end
We
such a
end
letter
such a letter
with
with
the words
the words
yours sincerely
yours
or
sincerely
again,
or again,
kind regards or best
kind
regards.
regards or best regards.
How do we usually begin an informal letter or email? How do we usually begin an informal letter or email? We usually begin an informal letter or
email
with the words
with the
dear
words
name
dear
or
name
hi
or
name.
hi name.
And how can we end such a letter or email? And how can we end such a letter or email? We can
We
end
can
such a
end
letter or
such
email.
We can end
Such
such a
the letter or
or
email with the
with
words
the words
best wishes,
best
love,
wishes,
etc.
love, etc.
What's a reference library? What's a reference library? A reference
A
library is
library is
reference library
library
is a library where we
library
are
where we
allowed
are
to
allowed to
read the books,
read
read the
books,
books, read the books,
read a book,
but we are not allowed to borrow them
but we are not allowed to borrow them
and take them
and
home.
take them home.
If we are answering a formal letter, Mira, how do we often begin our letter? If we are answering a formal letter, how do we begin or often begin our letter? If we are answering a formal letter, we often begin our letter with reference to your letter of 19th January, etc. Yeah, just continue, guys. Now, what do we mean by the word goods? So, what do we mean by the word goods? By the word goods. By the word goods. We mean anything.
We mean anything
that can be bought
that
or
can
sold.
be bought or sold.
You're getting me there. If your order, for example, only since it's like delivery or something, right? If you order goods only but they don't arrive, can you cancel the order and get a refund? If you order goods only but they don't arrive, can you cancel the order and get a refund? Yes, if I order online or goods online but they don't arrive, I can cancel the order and get a refund. How do we know when a dog is in good condition? How do you know when a dog is in good condition? We know a dog is in good condition when its coat is shining, when it's shining, and its nose is cold and wet. That's why your coat is shining, huh? Hello, Tiki. Puppy, puppy. Why do people go on strike? Why do people go on strike? People go on strike because they want more money or better working conditions. Do you think that people should have the right to strike? Do you think that people should have the right to strike? Yes, I think that people should have the right to strike. Yes, even without the word the. I think people should have. I think people should have the right to strike. Yes, they also, everyone has the right though. When you post a letter, Miyu, do you take it to the post office or do you just put it in the nearest post box? When you post a letter, do you take it to the post office or do you just put it in the nearest post box? When I post a letter, I take it to the post office. I take it to a post office. Where do we find a letterbox? Where do we find a letterbox? We find a letterbox.
We find a
letterbox in a front door.
A front door.
Yep, if you cannot manage to answer a question, what does the teacher do? If you can't manage to answer the question, what does the teacher do? If I can't manage...
If I cannot?
Exactly. If I can't manage to answer a question, the teacher helps me. The teacher helps me.
The teacher helps me.
I'm here. I am your teacher. What does a manager do? What does a manager do? A manager manages a business. Or
business or
part of a business.
Part of a business.
That is, he makes important decisions about how the business operates. Okay, let's move down. Which do you think is better to possess brain speed or money? Which do you think is better to possess brain speed or money? I think it's better to possess. Which one?
Everything.
No. Only one. You cannot have your cake and eat it. I think it's better to possess. Which one? Which one? Come on. What do you like? Money?
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Why? Because everything needs money.
Everything needs money.
Yes, guys, not money can buy everything. Everything needs money. Meaning, if you want to be beautiful, you want to be smart, use money, guys. Yeah, anyways, this is just for business-minded people. Anyways, what about this one? What can we make from corn? What can we make from corn? We can make bread, cereal, and many other types of food from corn. What do we do with the weeds in a garden? What do we do with weeds in a garden? We pull weeds out of a garden and either burn them or throw them away. What does the idiom just the job mean? What does the idiom just the job mean? The idiom just the job
means
exactly what is needed. Give an example. Is that trip to that countryside last weekend was just the job. Was just the job. I feel so relaxed now. Yay, me! That's the end of stage 7, and we can now have our snacks. And that's just the job, guys. Yeah, right? So thank you so much, me, for having this full stage revision again with me today, right? Have a good day. Bye for now.